Welcome to the Ultrahuman experience. This session is free for you for the complete experience. Please download the Ultrahuman app.
Good evening. My name is Hlonela Nwebo. Welcome to Lake Kariba. Tonight, we'll learn all about the stories, animals, and legends of this place. And our guide is one of its oldest inhabitants. It's time to meet him. Close your eyes and relax. Imagine a bright clearing in a forest. You hear the sounds of water running by. That is the Zambezi River running through the forest. Ahead, you see an elephant. He is powerful. He is majestic. He looks at you. You notice that his eyes are full of kindness, wisdom, and intelligence. He is the oldest of the creatures that live by Lake Kariba and is full of stories about this place. He will be your guide today. This is what he says. It was a beautiful, serene day, like every other at Kariba. And yet, it was very special. For it was at this time of the year that the animals would gather to remember the story of their land. I stood on the bank, looking out across the vast, sparkling expanse of water. The powerful Zambezi River and the clear Lake Kariba were a place of peace and happiness for me and my kind. And I stood there, letting my thoughts wander freely, like the ripples on the water. Suddenly, I heard a rustling from a patch of trees in the woods behind me. I turned and carefully stepped forward into the forest and peeped through a thick bush. I saw a lone human wandering about. I should keep an eye on her, I thought to myself, in case she has come to cause trouble. But she looked harmless, just a little girl. Her dark black hair was plaited and tied neatly over her head. The child gave off a calm aura that was at one with the silence that surrounded us. It was a warm, inviting aura. She smiled, as if she was gracefully absorbing energy from the wild, and it seemed almost as if her brown, silky skin was glowing with it. Walking up to the fresh blue stream. She scooped up the cool water in her palms and drank it all up. She seemed satisfied, for the water in Kariba was especially delicious. She walked beside the stream, watching the blue water rush over pebbles and wet soil. She slowed down and watched as a leaf fell into the stream and floated away. Time appeared to slow down as she stood there, peacefully, at one with nature. I too felt a sense of calm come over me. She ran her hands over a grey paperbark tree. Its thinly layered bark had deep tears all over it. She reached up to a low-hanging branch above. Her light touch caused the leaf to break off. The leaf, which was long and slender, resembled a piece of seaweed. I marveled at the elegant dance between nature and the elements. The girl now bent down over a dense green bush. She gently pushed the leaves apart to discover that it had bright purple roots. She smiled, delighted at this bright burst of color. These were the things that made Kariba so beautiful, and this curious girl seemed happy to be here. I watched the young girl from behind the bush and marveled at her happiness. It isn't often that human beings come out here to connect with themselves. Not anymore, at least. The forest has largely been left to us animals, who keep it company day and night. We watch it change color and transform with each season. The forest, in turn, watches us change as we grow older and new wrinkles appear on our skin every few months. Standing on top of a rock, the girl saw something moving in the water. I watched as she made her way down from the rock, slowly and carefully. Her excitement filled the air with joy. She saw that it was a beautiful yellow flower flowing down the stream. She tried to run alongside it, but it moved too swiftly with the water. It flowed further downstream till it was near where I stood, hidden by the bush. I didn't want her to see me yet, but neither did I want her to lose the flower. And so I stepped forward and picked it up out of the stream. The girl walked towards me slowly, stunned and at a loss for words. For several moments, she stared curiously at me. Then she exclaimed joyously, "An elephant!" I introduced myself to her, telling her my name Munashe. My name is Ruva, she responded. She explained that her name came from an exotic flower that could be found deep in the forest of Kariba. A beautiful red flame lily. She was named after her great-grandmother, who was a child of a Tonga man and a Shona woman. She told me that her great-grandmother was the first child between the two rival tribes. The red flame lily was a gift that had been given to the Shona tribe following her great-grandmother's birth. Ruva glanced downstream and noticed that we were near a point where the stream emptied into the powerful Zambezi River, whose blue waters gushed along with great force. I asked her if she wanted to walk along the river with me. She agreed, without a moment's hesitation. Then she stretched her little legs and arms, took a deep breath, sighed out loud, and looked at me to lead the way. We began walking downstream towards the Kariba Dam wall, a mighty structure that halted the Zambezi River. Just ahead of us lay the Grand Lake Kariba, formed by the dam. Ruva stared with awe as she strolled towards it. Together, we made our way up to my favorite place in Kariba, from which to watch the sunset. The wall of the dam divided Zambia and Zimbabwe. As we crossed over into Zimbabwe, we took in the beautiful scene that spread out before us. Stretching far into the distance were lush, dense woods with a range of vegetation from green grass to thick, bushy shrubs and tall trees. We entered these woods and saw birds of all sizes and colors flying around. One of these caught Ruva's eye immediately, a jet black bird with a bright white spot on top of its head. As it fluttered across the canopies towards a nearby tree, I noticed that it had what looked like a beetle in its beak. The bird landed smoothly on its nest. It bent forward to feed the beetle to its babies. Ruva's stomach began to growl, so I used my trunk and took down an mbato fruit. The fruit had a tough covering, and so I wrapped my trunk around it and cracked it open, then shared it with her. Ruva had never seen the fruit before and went quiet for several minutes as she took bites out of it. The fruit had tough, bumpy skin, like that of lychee, but colored turquoise with a few darker patches of green. Inside was a thick, fleshy, cream-colored fruit with a sharp, sweet and sour flavor. As we walked along, Ruva chewed with pleasure. When she had finished eating the fruit, I heard her sigh with satisfaction. We then emerged from the woods, descending along a path to the bank of the lake, from where we could see the dam in the distance. When we reached, I drew up water from the shallow part of the lake with my trunk and sprayed it onto my back. Then I drew up some more water and squirted it into my mouth to quench my thirst. As I did, I heard Ruva move behind me. Before I could raise my head, I felt splashes of water on my side and my stomach. When I turned and faced her, she swung her leg into the water and splashed water onto my face, laughing. We played in the clear, cooling blue water for some time. Then we made our way to the bank and rested on its brown sand. Finally, Ruva got up and started writing in the softened sand. I watched in silence, waiting as she focused on the task. It was a short letter to the magnificent land we were in for the joy it had brought her. Ruva and I then made our way up the path to Noah's Ark, the highest viewpoint at Lake Kariba. Noah's Ark was a favorite place for many of us. The path we were on was lined with large evergreen trees. Birds chirped happily as they settled on branches to watch the sunset. The flowers along the path slowly closed their petals, signaling that the day was coming to an end. The sky slowly changed color, from a brilliant azure to a soft coral orange. We arrived at Noah's Ark just in time. It was called an ark after a flat rock that hung over the water, like the protruding bow of a ship. It was here that newborns were presented and welcomed into the greater family of Kariba. Ruva climbed down from my back, walked ahead, and sat down near the overhang. When the Kariba Dam trapped river water, forming the lake, many trees were submerged, and the bare limbs of some still protruded out of the shallow waters that we could see from Noah's Ark. We heard a strange humming sound and felt a pulsating wind on us. Something that resembled a large cloud cast a big shadow over us, descended from the sky, and drew closer and closer to the water. When this cloud was lower, we realized that it was a flock of scarlet-chested sunbirds. The flock settled on the drowned trees near the overhang. Other animals, too, gathered around the lake's shore as the African sun sank slowly into the horizon. The chatter of animal families filled the air. The water glittered orange from the reflection of the sun's rays. The shadows of trees grew longer as the sun dipped lower, and then it was the hour of twilight, between day and night, neither light nor dark. Just like that, the sun was gone. It would only be later in the night that its capable companion would take its place in the sky. From Noah's Ark, we could see 16 islands in the distance. The islands bulged out of the water, sparkling water lapping at their edges. Ruva saw a glimmering light, glimmering that shone from between two islands. She sat up and asked if it was a lighthouse. I told her that it wasn't, but that I would tell her more about it later that night. It was the night every year when all the young animals would listen to one of the elders speak. And tonight, it was my turn to address the youthful minds of the forest and share with them the story of our land's protector and provider. We then walked to the nearby clearing of Chara to find that the animals had built a roaring bonfire. It was a scene of vibrant energy, with the youngest ones running about, playing and dancing. Among them were leopard cubs, giraffe calves, infant monkeys, and many other kinds of creatures. One of the lion families was made up of descendants of the Zambezi lions that once lived together with the Tonga people. Many years ago, as early inhabitants of Kariba, before the Tonga people left, they would gather with the tribe's people around this ancient pit and share stories with each other. When they noticed that I had arrived, the animals all settled down and waited for me to introduce our guest before starting the long-awaited story. I told them how Ruva and I had met and spent the afternoon together, and the animals welcomed her heartily, each species making its distinctive noise, some grunting, some roaring, some squawking. Then Ruva sat amongst them. A monkey eagerly walked over to her and handed her a piece of roasted corn, which she immediately began to nibble on. As I prepared to begin the story, I looked deep into the flames as they danced and played amidst the burning logs. Such moments remind me that fire is a symbol of unity and togetherness. It allows us to disconnect from the chaos of the world around us and reconnect with each other. So let us start, I said then. Tonight, I will tell you a story about the glowing island. We all saw it at sunset today, and even now, across the lake, we can see how the island lights the water that surrounds it. It flashes like a lighthouse, but it isn't one. In fact, there is no electricity there. What shines on that island is a stone. Ruva moved closer to a lion cub and cozied up to him, leaning against his thick golden fur. She listened intently, her eyes wide and unblinking. The stone on the island decides to reveal itself only once every year on this day. This is the day that it was placed there as a gift by one of the early kings of Great Zimbabwe. But a gift to whom? The Kariba waters are home to Nyami Nyami. Nyami Nyami is a snake god that has lived, that is living, and will live in these waters, which long ago it chose as its home. Its head is like that of a dragon, and sharp fangs protrude from its mouth. It is long, longer than you can imagine, so long that no one has ever seen its full length. After Nyami Nyami chose to settle in Kariba, the king arrived bearing the precious stone to pay homage to the god and thank him for coming here. At the moment when the king placed it on the island and Nyami Nyami accepted it, the stone, which had no color of its own, began to emit a green light. People thought it was a dazzling emerald, but it wasn't. I know this, for it was I who carried the king as he journeyed from his elegantly designed granite stone mansion in Masvingo to Kariba. Since then, Nyami Nyami has protected all of the animals of Kariba, and the stone's green color is a reminder of this. Many lands far and wide have experienced multiple droughts, but we who live in Kariba have always been spared. And it is our duty as its inhabitants to protect the stone and its story. Many people have tried to steal it from us, but they will not succeed because Nyami Nyami and his stone are a part of our family, and we protect our family. Tonight at midnight, when moonlight falls upon the stone, it will give off a glorious blue sparkle. As I continued my story, I saw that Ruva's eyes were beginning to droop as her eyelids grew heavier and heavier. She adjusted her position and rested even more snugly against the coat of the lion cub beside her. "Look, it's midnight," I said then. We all looked towards the light and saw that a blue sparkle had begun to radiate from it. Bright rays shooting up from the earth to the sky. We watched, mesmerized. Earlier, the sky had been filled with stars, but now the dazzling blue shone over everything. In front of us, the fire ceased to burn, almost magically, as if the wood at the center had suddenly absorbed the flames. The few animals that hadn't fallen asleep before now closed their eyes. My eyes too began to droop. The place I sat was a perfect spot from which to bask in the magnificence of the beautiful lake, which took me back to the day I had traveled with the king and a few others to bring the stone here. It was such a glorious day. I had never seen such a serene ecosystem or dipped my trunk into such pure crystal water. Our king allowed us to stay here after he saw that many of us who had accompanied him on his journey had unexpectedly fallen in love with Kariba. We felt at home. I felt myself sink deeper into the cushioning sand, preparing for a sleep like no other. My eyes could fight sleep off no longer. In fact, it wasn't only my eyes, but my entire being that was sinking into a state of rest. I was asleep. Good night and sweet dreams.